Hi, Barry Eaton, and this is Radio Out There. Something very different in our program. Different last week, different again this week. Tonight, a book launch. Now, we haven't done this on Radio Out There before. In fact, the only book launches I've been to are the ones that I've actually been launching the book. But the boot's on the other foot now because I have Pete Smith with me. And you all know Pete Smith because he's been on Radio Out There so many, many times and is a very well-known man. Pete, hi, welcome. How are you feeling about your book launch?
Well, it's an exciting night, Barry, and it's an exciting time to launch a book, I think, because the world needs books that bring inspiration. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what
that's
this one's
very
about.
true. Now, your book is called The Transcendence of Celeste Kelly. And there's some wonderful background to all of this, but because it's different to the other books you've written and the other books that we've talked about on Radio Out There before this, and I guess different from all the people who've read your previous books too. This is totally different, and yet there is a link. So we'll get onto that very shortly. I'm going to quote from within the book here, and you can see it in the background that with Pete there, the Transcendence of Celeste Kelly. And this is from Mary Rodwell, who says something at the beginning of the book. And says, it's a fascinating journey which focuses on the nature of reality. That's a bit unusual in this day and age, isn't it? We seem to be escaping reality. It's a fictional story about a scientist faced with experiences which challenge her notion of reality, taking on a multidimensional journey of exploring metaphysical principles. So that says a mouthful, doesn't it? So, Pete, why did you decide to do it this way? And tell us about the book as well.
Well, Barry, I mean, as you know, I've been a non-fiction author for a while, and I think that new times need new approaches to let people know who they really are. And it was my partner Melina who suggested to me at one point because I'd written a few Facebook posts about snippets from the future. She said, "Well, why don't you write a fictional book for the next one?" Because the non-fiction book wasn't coming anyway. So I thought, well, what a great way to be able to showcase the sort of consciousness work that we do and that I've been involved in now for over 20 years. What a great way to be able to take it to the world in a new format, in a way that allows us to explore a little bit more through the eyes of these characters and have these metaphysical experiences. And because they're, I guess, founded in real experiences across our network over a long period of time, they have this resonance for the reader about the possibilities of who they really are and what they can experience if they have the courage to do so.
Yeah, courage, isn't it? And Celeste Kelly, we should talk about that because Celeste Kelly is not just somebody who's living in the suburbs and wants to transcend. She is a very special person. You've painted a wonderful picture of her. So can you share with us your image, your thoughts, and your analysis of the lovely Celeste?
Well, I guess she's got two sides to her. And I remember when I first started to write the book and I had to do, I flip charts on walls kind of guy, much like Celeste is in the book. And I had to scope the character. And I was looking to build somebody who was troubled, like we all are. We all have, we all have our little challenges in life. She had some big ones with the loss of her parents. But she had something else in her. She had the scientific mind, but she had this inherent wish to explore as well and do what science is supposed to do. And that's about chasing down new frontiers, blazing new trails, and having an inquiring mind that took her further to try and understand these things. I guess I was looking to build a character that had lots of different facets that I could explore in the story. She's brilliant, but she's troubled. She's inspired, but she's vulnerable. There's times when she um, falls into the emotional side. There's times when she retreats into a mind. I mean, she's a microcosm of all of us, I think. So there's a bit of any of us that read the book. There's a bit of us in Celeste.
Hmm. And being a scientist, she's almost a standout in this day and age of scientists who seem to be more skeptics, cynics rather than open-minded, especially areas around spirituality, metaphysics, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of her challenge is to surrender her scientific brain because she can't explore spirituality with it. So she has to, if you like, get out of her mind and get into the quantum field in order to explore the quantum field. You can't explore the quantum field through the human intellect because it's too restricting. If you want to explore what's outside your body, you've got to go outside and you've got to find it.
Now, you and I talked about quantum consciousness on several occasions on radio out there, but for those people who might be listening or watching for the first time, tell us just a bit about the quantum consciousness that Celeste is getting involved with here. So just set the scene a bit for us.
Okay. Well, quantum consciousness, as you know, was the name of my last book. And my whole drive to explore that. That's it. Thank you, Barry. That's it.
That's all right.
So for me, quantum physics is the science of possibilities. You know, when they discovered quantum entanglement, which makes no sense, spooky action at a distance, when they discovered the double slit experiment, is something a particle, or is it a wave, or is it both? And depending on how you observe it, it takes different shape or form. And they start to talk about different dimensions in string theory. So, you know, there's something about the quantum realm that is the science of possibility. But then consciousness is the fabric of the universe, because we are consciousness, everything around us is consciousness. And if you put the science of possibility and the fabric of the universe and how it actually works together, that was where I was coming at from quantum consciousness, using science as a springboard into what goes beyond science, because I think that's where we're from.
True. So this was basically the purpose of the book, and you decided to make it a fiction rather than writing a non-fiction. Because why? Because it's a bit too complicated for some people, or what?
Well, I've had some interesting feedback on the quantum consciousness book, and a lot of people talk about quantum physics and it makes it easy for them to read and all of that. But there's a lot of people that won't pick up a book on quantum physics, but they'll pick up a good read, they'll pick up a good story. And the challenge for me was to, if you like, story the quantum consciousness work into something that made a lot of sense for people, and to have characters present it in a way that people could understand and learn along the way as well. So for me, it's touching a group of people who would not necessarily have read some of the non-fiction books. People just want a good read, and stories teach. Stories have always taught. If you look at the first people of Australia, their whole culture has been transported down across 80,000 years from stories. There's legends in every ancient culture. Stories are the things that inspire us and teach us and help us to understand more of who we are. Stories are important.
And it is important to get the message across, isn't it? So if people, I wonder if some people get a bit turned off by non-fiction, but you can put a point across by creating a fiction story. Was that in the back of your mind?
Absolutely. And I must say, there's a bit of me in a few of the characters, and the people
Which
that
bit, Pete? Which bit?
Well, let's just say that Abby and I share the same tattoo. But anyway,
You'll have to read the book to work that one out.
That's right. Yeah, I'll leave that one hanging as a bit of an appetite whetter. You know, for me, it's about helping people drift into the story themselves. And you have to build characters that people can identify with. And when people identify with a character, they become the story. And when they become the story, they receive the learnings that the characters learn. And that leaves somebody in a better space than before they read the book. And the feedback that I've had so far from an initial reader group, from an early reader group, was that they found something in the book that inspired them, or they enjoyed, or it lifted them. And you know, I'm just completely blown away by that feedback, because that was exactly
the purpose of every book, to find something there as a reader that inspires you, turns you on, entertains you, captures you in some way. I mean, that's what books are all about, aren't they? Fiction and non-fiction.
I like to think that, Barry, But you and I both know there's lots of books out there that are written to make money, and they're written to a formula. And one of the
Yeah.
challenges is when you go to a publisher, which I discovered is they often have a formula,
Mm.
and they say, well, it should be like this, and it should be like this, and it should be like this. And my reaction to that is, well, no, I've got a creative piece here that I want to bring to this. So there's this loving collaboration where a publisher, particularly the one I had with Talia at AIA Publishing, for her to say, well, here's the formula, and I say, here's my story, and then we work together in a way that finds the best of both.
Yeah, no, that's important, very important. Now, we are going to open up, we have an audience with us, as in every book launch, there's always an audience. At the moment, for those watching the program from various parts of the world or listening, you won't be able to see or even hear the audience. They're not sort of jumping up and down in the background. Well, I hope they're not anyway. But we're going to ask our audience if they have some questions, and we'll ask you to unmute yourself at the time. Otherwise, please stay on. But any questions as you go through there, and we invite everybody to participate, because that's the object of a book launch, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And happy to take any questions about the content or even beyond. It's sort of it's a bit of an open book, pardon the pun. So let's.
You had to do that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess so. But let's talk about anything we want to. So.
All right. Okay. Well, we have, as I said, the audience there, so we'll get you across there. And Pete, do you think this is the whole area of fiction about subjects like metaphysics, in your case, the Transcendence of Celeste Kelly? And I know, I mean, you and I have worked on a couple of projects together, including my last book, Past Lives. And I'm wondering whether or not the fiction element is going to be the future for getting the message across to the wider world.
I think there's some power in it, Barry. I remember, wow, it must be 30 years ago that I read a book that inspired me called The Celestine Prophecy.
Mm.
And I read that and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. And of course, it's a fictional book.
Yeah.
And I don't think they ever did it justice with the movie that came out many years later. But when Redfield wrote that book, it was fantastic. A lot of the things that we read in science fiction as well, if you look at the legends of Star Trek or Stargate, some of these fictional stories, they've got so much accuracy in them. You've got to wonder whether some of that is true in the universe somewhere. I mean, Star Wars is probably the ultimate science fiction story, and it's become quite an incredible body of work now, the Star Wars movies and series, etc. And I think that, you got to ask where this stuff comes from. And is it really fiction, or are there snippets that come through the people that already exist in the universe somewhere? Are people who write historical fiction, are they drawing on their past lives? There's such rich content that is out there in the collective consciousness that to get some of that into storylines is something that then starts to educate the world and get us talking. There's, I think, one of the great losses to the world is people drifting away from books. And
that's happened, but they're drifting back in again now, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. It's pretty busy down at my local library. I'm there a couple of times a week because, there's something about the feel of a book in your hand that is something that I've always enjoyed since I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
and I can't quite do it with a computer screen or a Kindle or something like that. So you drop your Kindle in the creek and you've lost your whole library. So for me, it's about the stories, it's about the books, it's about holding the story in your hand and making it your own, and that's a source of inspiration for life.
Now, when you said the information coming from somewhere else, I know that I've written a trilogy, as you know, on the afterlife, including Past Lives, the last book I worked with you on. And I know that I had a lot of help from the world of spirit. I had a couple of very senior people, shall we say, very advanced spirits on the other side helping me, which I'm quite happy to talk about. I did it in both books. And I'm wondering whether or not this is happening a lot more, because they do have a message for us on the other side. my message to get across was take the fear out of dying, so-called dying. We don't die, only the body dies, as you know. So taking the fear out of death, and that was part of a large movement. So do you feel, did you have any downloads yourself while you were writing this, that you feel that you might be able to attribute, shall we say, to some help from the other side?
Well, yes, and in two ways. The first way is that, and I experienced this with the book before as well. Sometimes you get to the end of writing and you end of, chugging away on the keyboard for some period of time, and you pause and you read back over what you've done. You don't remember writing it.
No, that's right.
And that's a beautiful feeling, because that's a place of purity for an author, that you've tuned into something greater than yourself in order to bring something through. And if you embark on that project with a high purpose of trying to help people or raise the vibration of those who read it, then I think the universe responds. So that was the first thing I had. But the second one was, very interestingly, I was doing a session with somebody, and for confidentiality for that person, I'll leave this out. But she said to me, she said, well, there's a group of people here and they're here for you. And I said, well, who are they? She said, it's some old group of scientists. They look like old quantum physicists or something, and they're gathering around and they want to talk to you about a book. So it's like I couldn't find that myself, but through the eyes of somebody who was actually an exceptional medium as well, through the eyes of that person, they were able to put me in touch with a quantum group that then I started to feel the flow of some of their ideas and their thoughts coming through. So, my name's on the front of the book, but, I represent a number more than me. That's for sure.
Well, I know when you did some past life regression on me for my past life book, and I listened back afterwards, I mean, I think, where did that come from? So obviously, there is part of ourself or part of the connection with the other side that is there and just waiting to be tapped into.
Yeah, absolutely. They talk about the collective unconscious. And I'm a Jung fan, and that's going to be obvious to anyone who reads the book.
Join the club.
Yep. And his concept of the collective consciousness, I think, was quite brilliant, that nothing is ever lost and everything is retained and it's all out there. But I don't think he thought big enough. And he talked about the collective unconscious was his real term, but he talked about that as being the repository of wisdom for humanity. But I just think it's so much bigger, Barry. I think it's the all there is, and I think it includes everything outside of time and space, other civilizations, other planets. We are like a grain of sand on a beach that never ends. That's the size of the universe. Our planet's like that grain of sand. And there's so much waiting for us to explore. And I don't think we need to build all these spaceships. I think our consciousness can travel, and it can be transported across this incredible web of energy and consciousness. We take our awareness to other places. We can retrieve information and bring it back. People have been doing this incredibly for years. I think the universe is already there, and we're right in the middle of it, and we've only got to reach out to find the pieces that we seek.
Fair enough. Now, as I mentioned before, we have an audience with us. They're in the waiting room. And I've got a written question here, but we'd love to hear from you if you would like to actually, like we have Josie right now on the line. Josie, would you like to actually talk to Pete? Pretend it's an open line radio program and is on television as well. So I can read the message if you like, but I would really like, and Pete would too, to be able to have our audience become part of our book launch here. So, Josie, would you like to come in now and ask that question and have a chat with Pete as far as you're relating to the character of Celeste?
Sure, thanks. So, Pete, the question I wrote was, I could really relate to the character of Celeste, and I'm thinking that many people are also typically head-driven in everyday life. The book was wonderful in illustrating how Celeste was able to surrender to connecting into the quantum field. Would you suggest that anyone is able to tap into the quantum field?
Thanks,
That's a great question.
Great question. Look, I think we are part of the quantum field, and when we're ready to remember that to an extent, we can remember it a little bit, we can remember a lot. Some people may need to do a little bit of work to be able to get there. Start with meditation and gradually build up towards it. But I feel in some ways we never leave the quantum field, and I think that our culture in Western society, particularly, wants us to forget that we're part of that quantum field and become part of a different type of machine that is, Western life, forget our magnificence and just toe the line and be who we're meant to be. But we've always been so much more. That's a long answer. My short answer, it takes some practice, but I believe anyone can do it once they let go of the things that might be in the way.
Jodie, I should say, you want to ask me more?
Yeah, I would actually. So what are the things that you see getting in the way? Like for me, I know I've got this very strong scientific analytical brain that interferes with my capacity to just let go and tune into those subtle frequencies. So what are the practices that would be effective in allaying that patterning?
I think that there's our conditioning in society. We've been taught to cherish the human intellect and to ignore our emotional side in a lot of Western society. Somebody is regarded as being, a more wonderful person if they're a great thinker rather than if they're a great feeler. So I think there's a conditioning piece of society. And it was Jung himself who said the only way we can truly find out who we are is if we surrender two types of conditioning: our familial conditioning that we get from our family, and our societal conditioning, which we absorb from the environment in which we are grown into. So for me, the first one is conditioning, and the second one is experiences. And we all go through experiences in life, whether it's might be a difficult childhood, might be some troubled times that we come through. And I think we build this ability. It's technically it's resilience, but it's actually a sort of a teeth gritting, we've got to move on with life and continue to do it. And sometimes we build little defense mechanisms and ways to survive in life because we are a survival species. And sometimes we carry the past with us to an extent. So I think the combination of those two things is something that can make it more challenging. But I think that if we create a powerful enough intention to explore, then I think that has the capacity to override both of those things.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Josie. Well, there's our first caller in. We have some more people. Do we have another caller who'd like to ask a question, please? All right, while you're getting your act together there, we talk about the multi-dimensional universe, please. For those people who are perhaps not really over the top of all that, tell us a bit more about the multi-dimensional universe.
When I first started to do hypnotherapy work over 20 years ago, and I could take somebody who was 45 years of age, for example, and we'd go back in time to when they were 5, and we'd look at solving a problem, releasing something that was holding them back. And that person would get back to that age of 5, and they would often talk like a 5-year-old. And I thought, this is bizarre. This person is both 45 and 5. So they've got like this dual personality. When we started to do LBL work, we would then go into the pre-birth state, and we talk to somebody while they were in the womb, in utero. And then we'd go even further back to another lifetime. We'd go to the interlife, the life between lives that we all go back to between incarnations. So even in that one sort of session, I came to the conclusion that we were in these multi-dimensional facets that if we release time and space, we can visit all of them, and everything's in the now. Then we started to do past lives, and sometimes people would go to an off-world civilization, and I think, well, this is pretty cool. But they're not talking about then, and I used to be, in another civilization at the other end of the galaxy somewhere. They're talking to me like they're actually there. So for me, if that's who we are, and we're in all of these now times, then we have access to them from where we are now. We simply need a strategy to be able to move up and beyond time and space, and then to visit those places. So if we all have the capacity to do that, what that could mean is that we can go anywhere, we can be anything, we can visit these other places, and it's all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how I found that we were multidimensional, that we're all these things at exactly that time.
Mm. And you've woven that into your book about Celeste Kelly.
Yeah, she makes a lot of these discoveries. I don't want to do any plot spoilers too much.
But, no. But
I mean, a lot of these concepts about reincarnation, mediumship, off-world work, intention, time travel, a lot of those concepts are explored through the book itself.
Okay. All right, now we have Pete. We have Mike, at least, who is there. Mike, would you like to unmute yourself and tell us or ask Pete what you'd like to talk about? Are you there, Mike?
I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Pete, there's just so much talk of healing and healing this and healing that, and that's kind of like the underpinning of so much consciousness work. But I would love to know your thoughts on, does this work into altered states of consciousness, expanding out into our magnificence? Does that kind of transcend the need for all of that healing?
You know, Mike, there's this whole concept of I need to heal, and this is the piece of me that is broken, and you can go to a psychologist or somebody like that, and they will help you to fix the broken parts. I don't believe anything's broken. I think they're just lessons waiting to be learned. And I think sometimes we bring tough lessons into our life so that we can learn for ourselves. But by conquering some of those challenges, we can in turn inspire others. I believe that we're magnificent in ways that we don't even understand. And I believe that if there's not anything between us and our magnificence, they're simply the pieces that we need to explore. And when we explore them, then we do transcend, to use your word. We do move into a space that allows us to know more of who we are, where we fit in the world, and how we can then turn and help others do what we've done. And the more significant the journey in this lifetime, the deeper those challenges are. And we all know people who've moved through incredible difficulty and are still here just to be the inspiration for the other people. A lot of our things in the medical model and the psychological models are, you are broken, then you get labeled, then you get medicated, and then you start a loop of medications or what it might be. And you know, I don't want to speak too ill of well-meaning medical professionals, but I feel that a lot of the models that we use in those industries are about what's wrong, not about what's right, what's magnificent, what are we trying to learn here, why is the soul chosen this lifetime and these challenges. And once we make those discoveries, then we're set free into a space where we can inspire others to follow.
Okay, Mike, does that answer your question?
Oh, it begs lots more questions, but thanks, Barry. That'll do for the moment.
That'll do for you right now. Okay. We can always come back and ask another question later. Now, I've had a question to me from Nathan, who says, the Lord's canon talks of Earth being a stool. Do you agree with this? If so, what's the outcome for the individual and the collective of this stool? Interesting you should say that, Nathan. When I was doing talkback shows on radio, in mainstream radio here in Sydney, Australia, a long time ago, I came up with that concept and actually mentioned it on one of my programs, saying, I believe that Earth is a stool and we're here to learn, we're here to, I guess, make mistakes as we do at school, but we're here to improve ourselves. And I think that anybody who's studied the afterlife or whatever knows that that's what it's all about. Not necessarily physically, but spiritually, emotionally, and in every other way, that we are here to advance our soul. So what do you think, Pete?
Oh, absolutely. And it's pretty clear to me from the sessions that I've had with clients over the years, Barry, that they all come forward and they say, you know, what is the lesson that I'm trying to learn from this? Michael Newton, who I'm a great fan of, as you know, Michael Newton's books, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, he spoke a lot to this same concept. So it's places where he and Dolores Cannon actually agree that this is an incredible learning environment. Michael Newton went one step further and said this is probably one of the toughest schools around.
I reckon.
And we have some really difficult things on this planet, and I feel that we're starting to bring them into the light now so that we can deal with them. And I think that humanity's consciousness has reached a point where we're ready to face them and transcend them and, you know, set our whole species free to move to a new level of consciousness. But yeah, it's one big learning curve. And some days you feel like you're the bottom of the class. So other days you think you did all right on a test. But, you know, for me, yeah, I really align with that school analogy.
Well, it's no coincidence that the vibration on Earth is much, much lower than if we want to connect on the other side, we have to raise our vibration. And so I think what Nathan was saying there certainly makes a lot of sense to me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Me too.
All right. Derek, we have you who would like to ask a question of Pete. So, Derek, away you go.
Yeah,
Hi,
good evening. Good evening, Peter.
Hi, Derek. How are you?
Good. And as part of the introduction, Barry mentioned about, you know, to be the focus on reality. So can you give us your opinion on what reality is and what does it include?
Yeah.
And also you mentioned about, you know, when you were writing the book, you may have wanted to educate the reader on quantum consciousness. So how did you juggle that, educating the reader in quantum consciousness, as well as writing a story that has to be more tapped into the emotional body of the reader?
Yeah, good one.
Okay. A couple of great questions there, Derek. Let me go back to the first one. You know, reality, I think, is somewhat subjective. You know, somebody will say, I think you've lost your grip on reality. And the response is normally, well, I think you think I've lost my grip on your reality, but mine might be something completely different. They worked out with the observer effect and the double slit experiment, all of that we really see things through filtered eyes, and we filter things through our belief systems, through everything. And, you know, I'm reminded by the old anecdote, it's certainly not mine, but it's somebody else's, and the two shoe salesmen that arrive in the third world country. It's back in the old days, and there's the old telegraph, and they both go to the telegraph office and they both send a telegram. And the first guy sends a telegram back to his shoe company back in his home country. And his telegram says, no opportunity, no one wears shoes. And the next guy comes in, he sends his telegram and he says, unlimited opportunity, no one wears shoes. So I think reality is something that we create through our own perceptions. Certainly there's a lot of overlap because people will carry a certain attitude into something that, you know, it'll be this attitude or that attitude, so they'll see it slightly differently. But, you know, I don't have this ironclad grip on reality like I used to once before. And I think that there's examples where we do drift between different timelines, if you like. You know, sometimes, you know, I've had experiences where something was available in one timeline, then it's not there in another. You might go down the street, something's changed in that street from the time you were there before. You know, my partner Melina and I, we have a running joke about a ring she has. Sometimes one of the stone's missing, sometimes it's not. I think that we drift a little bit between different timelines. And I think reality for me is blurred a little bit as consciousness speeds up. And I think we can unconsciously, most of the time, choose which reality we are in when things go according to the way in which we direct our thoughts. If you think bad thoughts, bad things happen. If you think good thoughts and you remain optimistic, then good things seem to happen. I think we're actually creating the energy that we have in our lives through the attitudes that we have. So, you know, the question about reality is for me a little bit more blurred than it used to be. And I think we're in charge of creating that reality. Juggling the story between getting the message of quantum consciousness across. Because I've been doing that work for so long, it's really become a part of me that is simply the way I see the world. So rather than try to integrate it, I just set out to write the story as me knowing what I did. And somehow it seemed to synchronize into a story that showed the characters, but then ended up with a storyline as well. And there's a lot of my personal experiences in the book in different places for things that I've been through with my own clients over the years. So for me, I saw it as more of a blend than a back and forth between the two, because I think what, there's the world is full of authors, and I think everybody has a book in them. And I think when you are set free to write a book that's about your experiences and how you see the world, I think you bring those pieces in from all those different directions and just put something together that's truly yours, with help from the other side.
Right. Does that answer that one for you?
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Derek.
That's all right. Pete, you talked about your grip on reality, but surely your reality has changed. It's never going to, as is all. I mean, the reality that I have now in my life is far different from when I was trying to get cast as a young actor, for instance, or when I was running a media relations company, or various other things. Reality changes under circumstances.
Absolutely.
So surely reality is a flowing stream.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things I love about quantum physics is this theory of the alternate realities. And one of the experimental components we did in the quantum consciousness work was to meet other versions of us that had taken a different path into another reality and had gone the other way in a fork in the road as a decision. And we're seriously quantumly entangled with those other versions of ourselves. And we started to have those conversations about what happened in the other reality. And that furthered my whole concept around the multidimensional piece. Because when we start to talk to ourselves on different timelines that have had different experiences in life, and we learn from them and they learn from us, that's truly living your life in a multidimensional way.
Fair enough. All right, we have Kate who would like to say something about Kate, you say you're curious about a couple of things, only a couple. Please, Kate, tell us what you're curious about.
Thanks, Barry. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. A couple of things. Celeste talks about people incarnating to do one of or more than one of four things. She kind of categorizes people. You know, those empaths. She speaks about those people who are empathically resensitizing humanity. She speaks about those who are here to break, I'm not sure if break is the right word, but break karmic loops. Those who are here to heal generational patterns, and those who have a more sort of remembered cosmic lineage, who are here to bring through new frequencies. And two questions. The first is, from your experience in Celeste's voice, is it a question of either or, you know, or are people, or is some incarnated to do all of the above? And the second part of my question is, I'm just really curious about the first, for personal reasons, the first and the last of those two categories, to use a simplistic word. I'd just love to hear more about that from your experience with quantum consciousness and, you know, over your decades of working with private clients.
Let me boil this up to the bigger level. I think many of us have incarnated in these times to be part of a shift of consciousness. In order for us to shift the consciousness of the planet, we need to perhaps clear some of the intergenerational issues that we've faced. Okay, we've got this planet has a terrible history of us being terrible to each other in so many different civilizations, so many wars, so many things that happen with crime and violence, etc. We've got a lot of that is passed from generation to generation. So there's some real waves of ancestral trauma in humanity. There's a desensitization that I feel we've had. And I think people who are here to feel more are rebalancing that. We've got we're going to get some of them remember our cosmic roots. And if you look at some of the conversations about UFO disclosure, or UAPs as they call them now, in the US at the moment, then we're getting closer to some of that cosmic knowing of who we really are. So I think as a collective, we've come here to clear the past, give ourselves a different future, and rebalance the present. So that covers mostly those groups that you mentioned. I think we all have a role to play in that. And I don't think we're divided sort of into those groups so much as we all have the capacity to discover those things about ourselves at a different point in time. But I do believe that we are resensitizing humanity, and there's a lot of anger and fear out there now, and people are feeling where they didn't feel maybe a few years ago, and there's been certain catalysts for that at a global level. But I think we're starting to feel more. I think we're starting to recognize some things in the past haven't worked well for us, and we need to clear the energy of those. And I think we've got to look up into the cosmos and remember our place in the universe. So how we do that as an individual level might line up with our unique purpose that we've come here to do in this lifetime. Or it might be something that we want to explore in partnership with others. We might do some of this stuff in groups. But ultimately, this awakening has many different approaches, and I think we're all part of it. And I think the lines between some of it are quite blurred. So when you're part of a wave of consciousness and you're one of those particles, you tend to bounce around within the wave and find your own path. And I think the more of us who simply remember that we are more than this, that's the first start for all of us. Oh, there's so much more to me than what I thought. I better start exploring. And that can be that moment of insight that starts things happening and sets us free to start to explore and to remember more. So for me, it's a journey across all of those dimensions that you asked. Some people are focused on one and not others. But I think as long as we do some of that, then humanity is going to move ahead. That's a long answer, Kate. Did that work for you?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Lovely. Okay, thanks, Kate. Now, we've had Natalie waiting on for a while to ask this question. So, Natalie, are you ready to have a chat to Pete? What is it you'd like to ask him?
Thanks, Barry. I wanted to look at the friendship between Celeste and Abby Pete. You know, there's such opposites, and the friendship is just such a warming, unlikely fusion of people, and one that, you know, I identify with both of them within myself almost. And I was just wondering if there was a greater purpose to having such opposites come together in such a beautiful, complementary way as they do.
Pete, maybe we could just explain. We haven't mentioned Abby before this. Can you let our listening audience around the world know who Abby is and what the relationship to Celeste is?
Okay. So Celeste, as we know, is the quantum physicist, as we've described. It's that's in her head and trying to leave it. Abby's her friend from school, and she's the opposite. And when Celeste was doing her homework twice, Abby was forgetting she even had some. And she's a social worker. She's a Reiki practitioner. She's been exploring, whilst Celeste was reading physics textbooks, Abby was reading books on past life regression. So they come from different worlds, but they meet in the middle because they have this friendship of besties from school, that they've seen each other through tragedy and trauma and been there for each other in ways that were just spectacular. And if you like, they are counterweights for each other. And Celeste has a way of dragging Abby down to earth and Abby has a way of telling Celeste to explore. And Abby has her own vibrant sort of personality, and the conversations between the two of them are just fantastic. So, you know, for me, and it's a great question, Nat, and I feel it's one of the dynamics that help us to round ourselves out, that as we gravitate towards people that are different to us, they actually have the capacity to be able to help us with our blind spots. And there's a number of times in the book when Abby helps Celeste with her blind spots for her better. And she turns to her for advice from time to time. So that's a self-awareness on Celeste's perspective, because she knows that she can't do some of this metaphysical stuff well. So she turns to a friend for help.
Fair enough. You were happy with that one, Natalie?
Absolutely. Thanks, Pete.
Lovely, that's fine. Now, we have no more questions coming up, but just in case somebody's going to in a moment, but the book now, The Transcendence of Celeste Kelly, it's an official launch, as we are here right now.
Yep.
Is it going to be freely available to everybody? Bookstores, where, what, how do we get it?
Yeah, it's out on all the normal online marketplaces.
Right.
Bookstores, I'm not sure yet about distribution in hard copy, but now that Amazon's got the print on demand and all of that sort of stuff, a hard copy is easy to get. Ebook is out as well. So, yep, freely available. It's written in Australian. It hasn't been translated into English yet, for those people who are concerned. But yeah, it's out. 28th of July was launch date. But there was something about the 8th of the 8th at 8 p.m. that was behind this gathering, so that we could all harness the power of what the book offers and launch it out into the world together.
Well, any numerology expert will tell you 8 is the most powerful number. So you get 3 8s. Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And 3 8s, 24, 2 and 4 are 6. So 6 is about relationships and pushing on families and everything like that. So it's a perfect time, perfect number.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Yeah, we were going for that.
So just before we wrap up, has anybody else got anything they'd like to contribute or to ask or say or contribute or whatever? Anybody? Doesn't look like. I think we've got everybody there, Pete. So
Okay.
look, thank you all so very much. It's a wonderful book. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, The Transcendence of Celeste Kelly, and I heartily recommend it. In fact, I've even written my recommendation in the book itself. So
I think we've got a final question, Barry. I think
got a final question.
Greg's just popped something into the box there.
Greg.
Hey, Greg, how you
Well,
doing?
hey,
Got there at the last
congratulations.
minute.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Greg.
congratulations.
Thank
What
you.
drives you?
Oh, there's a one. Big one to finish on, Pete.
No, it's a great question. We're going to shift the consciousness of humanity, Greg, and I didn't come here to lose. So we're gonna make it happen, and there's lots of different ways that we can do that. Sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's challenging somebody's belief, sometimes it's helping somebody let go of something they've carried all their lives. All of this helps, and there's only one way forward, and we're all here to do it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, mate. Always.
Thanks,
Send the
Greg.
love.
Yeah, good to see you, mate.
Okay. Now, we have a final one here from Millie. Now, Millie, I believe you are in Mexico City, is that right? Or Mexico, anyway. And you'd like to offer Pete congratulations. So can you pop in for a moment there, Millie, and say a few words? Always a long way to Mexico, obviously. Anyway,
She's dropped a comment in there.
She may
and
have dropped.
She couldn't put the
Anyway,
she couldn't put the book down.
She has the privilege of reading it, couldn't put it down, and she likes the way that you mix the metaphysical with the novel, and an excellent portrayal of characters is mesmerizing and makes for an incredibly compelling read. You will all love it, says Millie. So there you are. You will all love it. No, lovely. Thank you very much, Millie. Obviously, we've lost her from Mexico. Anyway.
Okay,
We have a question here
stopped.
from Nathan. Another question from Nathan.
Okay.
Oh, Millie says, by the way, her
Connect.
video stopped.
Because my video has been stopped on your end.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry about that. Don't know what happened there, Millie. Anyway, we've got you there now, so thank you for your lovely comment. And what Nathan wants to know, when do you see us achieving this new collective consciousness?
I think lunchtime on Sunday.
Before or after lunch?
Or I think just before, so that it doesn't spoil lunch and we can take our time.
Excellent.
You know, it's a great question from Nathan. I believe that we're getting there piece by piece. I think that in our lifetimes, we're going to see significant changes. And I'm 60 next birthday, so I'm towards the end and not the beginning. But I think in our lifetime, we're going to see a very different world. It's not going to happen next week. It won't happen by Sunday lunchtime, but it's not going to happen next week, next month, maybe not even next year. But I think that everything that we do is moving us forward in ways that haven't been possible up until now. We're having conversations that we didn't have before. We're seeing things come out that that were remaining hidden. I think that there's an awakening happening, and we're going to reach critical mass at a point in time, and then it'll just happen. And I don't think we're very far away at all from that critical mass.
Yeah. Well, speaking as an astrologer, I can tell you when Pluto moves into Aquarius next year, there's going to be big changes. And some of that control mechanism is going to start to be undermined. Okay. It's not going to happen in January, but it's going to be a new beginning. So I think you're right on target there, Pete.
Okay, bring it on. Let's get on with it.
Indeed. Derek says it'll happen when people read your book.
Thank you. Derek. Thank you, Derek.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Peter, would you like to just wrap up now that you are launching the book? A final word from the author.
Thanks, Barry. I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. It's wonderful to have the support for the book, and those of you who are listening as a recording, thank you so much. There's more about the work that we do. We've got lots of wonderful people at the Institute for Quantum Consciousness. And you can find that on instituteforquantumconsciousness.com if you want to explore some of this metaphysical stuff for yourself. But yeah, if you're inspired by the book, would love a review on Amazon. That's where a lot of the good reviews are held now. We've got some great reviews already that have happened on Goodreads and on the publisher's website. But what I really want to encourage people to do is just remember there is so much more to you than you ever could have dreamed, and it's within your reach. And your soul is waiting to meet you and to take you on a journey that will help you to understand who you are, why you're here, and why it's important for you to understand more of the metaphysical nature of who you are. This is a time of great awakening, and you have a role to play. So find your role and let's go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pete. And all the very best with the book.
And thanks so much, Barry. And it's great to be on radio out there again.
My pleasure. Anytime.